Hi, I'm Steve. Welcome to my shop. This is the third and last in the series of the hexagonal table build inspired by Yeung Chan. Today I'm going to focus on doing the top. This is a Starburst veneer pattern. Hopefully this isn't glaring in the camera too much. But this is a Starburst pattern of Macquarie veneer wrapped with some sapele molding, which is an offcut from another project. And I'll cover a few finishing touches, but I'm really loving the results of this, so I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Thank you for watching. Here I'm aligning my packet of veneer in a jig which I use to trim the veneers. I'm going to use the table saw to do this. I used to use this jig with a router, but it has a tendency to have a lot of tear out, and the router just doesn't deal with large overhangs and large stacks of veneers as well as the saw does. Here I've got an Eigner sawboy fence. This fence is used for flush trimming or pattern cutting, and I'm just aligning a block of wood with the side of the blade that's toward me and positioning the fence such that it's flush with the outside edge of the blade. My MDF veneer sandwich will then be aligned with the edge of the sawboy, and I'm trimming the first side of the wedge. The wedge you want just over 30 degrees since this is 12 segments. I found that these cuts I was making, I was just under 30 degrees, and that caused a problem later on, and I ended up having to go back to the saw and retrim that. And here I'm just taking the temporary tape off the packet. I'm marking each veneer sequentially so that I can book match the piece parts as I assemble the top later on. This is the assembly of the veneer. At the end of this assembly, the first half, I did discover I was less than 180 degree sweep, and I'm just using a tape to align the points. I just take great care to keep those points all together, and those points are very fragile. And I switched over to inexpensive masking tape because it's less expensive than the blue painter's tape, and it's the less expensive stuff doesn't stick to stuff very long, so it's perfect for this application. This is the point I discovered the angle was incorrect, so I went back to the saw and recut the wedge at a slightly greater angle. And what I do is I assemble two halves. I use that block of wood to align that last point to just make sure it's as good as I can possibly get it. Now that that's done, I'm going to turn the two pieces over and apply veneer tape to the opposite side. Here I'm back at the saw with the veneer trimming jig and the saw boy. I've moved the guard out of the way to keep it from undoing one of the air clamps. Notice the veneer halves I have taped together, and I've positioned the points to where they are not extending past the end of the jig. I do not want to remove the points because it just doesn't make for a good layup. Once that's done, I'm going to tape the two halves together. This side will be taped with masking tape, just taped together, and I'll flip it over and I'll use veneer tape on the opposite side. And where the book match veneer is on the right hand side of the screen, I actually missed the seam with the tape, so I ended up having to apply another piece. Once that's done, I turn to the bottom, just using the same jig. This is just plain mahogany. I'm using a Better Bond adhesive. This is a cold press veneer adhesive. Just put it on with a foam roller, and this is the bottom. I'll use a brayer roller to kind of flatten that thing out and remove any air pockets. Once that's done, I'll put the top between two cauls. The core of the top is 3/8 inch Baltic birch ply. And I'll put it in a vacuum bag, and it stays in the bag for this adhesive is between 45 minutes and an hour. And then once it comes out of the bag, after clamping, I'll let the glue cure for another 3 to 4 hours. And once that curing is done, I'll moisten the tape with some water and a sponge and remove it. I just use the X-Acto knife to kind of get under the edge of the veneer tape. Just makes it a bit easier. You just wipe off the excess adhesive with a wet sponge. Here I'm trimming the top to the hexagonal shape, taking care to have the points of the hexagon align with the starburst or the seams of the veneer pattern. Here I'm at the shaper. It's set up with an adjustable groover and a power feeder, and I've just got an offcut of sapele from another project that I used to cut the groove to wrap around the top. Trimmed into width, rounded over the corners, and now I'm putting a profile on the lower edge of the outside of the banding. Once that's done, I head back over to the modified Fritz and Franz jig and cut the miters on the edge banding of the top. I've drilled some holes in the top of 2 of the legs. I'm using some dowel centers to mark the location of alignment pins to be bored in the underside of the tabletop. Here I'm using a carpenter's pencil sharpener to put a chamfer on the ends of a 1/4 inch dowel. And I'm trimming those dowels to length. And I'm applying glue to the hole in the top of the table leg. This is one of 2 holes, and I'm plugging that hole chamfer side up. I've got a piece of 1/8 inch Baltic birch ply with an oversized hole, and I'm just using that to keep me from driving the alignment pin in too far. Here I'm checking make sure the leg bottoms are all on the same plane. 3 points define a plane, and I had 3 legs defining the plane of the bottom. So warning here, cover your ears. Here I'm using 120 grit sandpaper to remove the amount of material from the high legs, and I'm just checking the leg distances, the gaps with a business card. And I got all of these legs pretty tight except one. I could get the business card under it, but there was some resistance. And once you get to this point, it is ready for finish. I spray outside using an HVLP sprayer. I'm using garnet shellac and a 2-pound cut. The base gets 3 coats. The top gets 8 coats. And now I'm using some crumpled up craft paper. I use this on after all finish applications. That removes any dust nubs or raised wood fibers. It softens repeatedly as you go along, so it gets smoother and actually acts as a very fine abrasive. And here's just some photos of the various results during the construction of this table. And I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I thank you for watching.